So on that, and we also are recording this conversation. So I do want to start off with Akeila. Akeila, why don't you tell us about, you're saying that you've already in a public fight and there's a lawsuit going on. Can you talk about, because we're really talking about with you, young people that are in camps, jails, prisons, and what happened. So can you tell us how yours started off? Any sexual abuse? And was it with inmates or was it with those that were working in the prisons?
Okay. Well, prior to me going to camp, I had a a relationship with an older guy. I was about 15 and he was 35. So then I entered camp. And during that time, my grandmother was raising me. My mom also was a teenage parent, so my grandmother had took responsibility for me. So it was kind of hard for her sometimes to get there to make sure I had the things that I needed. So by me having like an older guy writing me, sending me things, I believe the staff, they see it. They see who's writing you, they see who's coming to visit you. You know, from then on, he started showing me attention, which not the children, the staff, the probation officers, things like that. And so I became involved with him due to I needed things. First, I looked at him as like, like an uncle figure. I would talk to him because I was very close. I have uncles and stuff on the streets. I would be very close to them and I talk to, just have conversation. So for me and him, we would have conversation. I would say we had like some trauma bonding situations. Like he could tell me stories about his mom. I'll tell him stories about my mom and dad, and we'll just go back and forth like that. And then we became it became something different after a while, and it continued on for a while.
Hey, and you said that you were 15 and you had a relationship with a 35-year-old man. So how did that happen? How did you get involved with an older adult male?
Well, walking from school, he'll be walking from school. I was in junior high school at this time, and he will be, always trying to, hey, hey, and for a long time I was like, no, no. But during that summertime when you're transitioning from junior high school into high school, I started hanging out with some older girls. And these older girls hung out with these older guys. And so then it became oh no, you know, talk to him, talk to him. He had the weed. So if I talk to him, now we smoking for free, we get this, and stuff like that. And so it went on from there.
So what you're saying is that you were groomed by older women.
Basically, yes.
Okay. Okay. Um, Leesa, are you, tell us about what your conversation is. Is it about the sexual assault in prisons? And are we talking about adults or youth?
We're talking about adults.
Okay. All right.
And we're also talking about young adults who've aged out of the juvenile system.
Mhm. And for anyone who's watching who may not know, can you talk a little bit about that? You say they're aged out. What age are they?
Well, we're talking about the age that Akeila's talking about, that have spent time in the juvenile system, maybe in and out of group homes, graduated into the juvenile system, and then graduated into the Department of Corrections into their young adult age, and now are in, in prison. And so they're 18, 19, 20 years old now, and all they've known is institutions. So they're in not so many words, growing up in the system. And so, these COs and these slave masters and these administrators of these prisons, they know the backgrounds of these young people that come in. And so they know their vulnerabilities. They know what they're coming in with. They know their backgrounds. They know their traumas. And because that they've been followed by social workers their whole lives. And so they are victimized in many different ways in the juvenile systems. You know, those lawsuits that are going on now in the juvenile halls are no joke. And a lot of that victimizations that have gone on have followed them into the prison system, because that sense of victimization, just like how a a woman comes into the prison system as a survivor of domestic violence, they often get targeted inside the prison system as well, to become a victim inside the prison as well. So so yeah, we're talking about all of those that are wind up in the prison system.
I do want to, if I can jump in, Candy, or you want to go over the question?
No,
I'm
go right ahead.
Okay.
I really wanted, when you're talking, Kelly, can you paint a picture for
Yeah.
those people who are watching this who don't know about this? When you say the institution and they've been followed, like, can you tell us maybe a story, a truth about someone? It doesn't have to be you, but maybe a situation that you know, like a kid who lived with maybe they lived with their parents, but their parents were on drugs or in the system, and then they started selling drugs. How does this person go from being a kid to getting in a system to getting into the institution of prison?
Right. So I wanted to try to connect what Leesa and Akeila said. So it's going to also align a little bit of what you're asking, right? And what I believe, like you say, getting people to understand. The reason why I think it's best to paint a background picture is because, of course, when you are incarcerated, you are guilty. You have committed a crime. There is no empathy. There is no compassion towards you. And so therefore, you're not looked at as a victim. How can you be a victim when you're already a perpetrator of a crime while you're committing these particular offenses, right? And so we know that also, so now you have the criminal background that's a strike against you. Now let's add on top of that that you are a person of color. You are a woman or a male of color, right? In which we know that we are criminalized just by the color of our skin. So it is hard for individuals to look at us as victims or have any type of empathy or compassion towards us of what even led us there in the first place. The systems that are in place that already set individuals up for this level of vulnerability and risk for predatory behaviors, not only in while we're on the street, like as Akeila said, that it was already beginning for her. So her sexual exploitation, so we're talking about sexual exploitation. Sexual exploitation is not just about the fact that we're on the blade, we're on the street, but that the fact that sometimes the family dynamics can set the sexual exploitation up. So for her, Akeila needed her needs met at 14, 15, or 16 years old. And so therefore there were older individuals that saying, hey girl, he got the money, he has this, won't you get at him, he likes you, not, get your needs met. So I know that Leesa, and I know that you'll probably speak to this already around the power dynamics, that I'm also depending on officers, whether male or female, to also make sure that my basic needs are met. And then we know, so I'm gonna kind of put in a little bit more of a dynamic, is that female offenders, whether juvenile or adults, do not get the level of support from their families and from their communities as male counterparts do. So therefore, it sets them up to have basic needs of hygienes, of shampoo, of things that continue on allowing us to care for ourselves as female identified folks, or whatever your gender you identify as, right? But at the same time is that care while in the facility. So the power dynamic, so if I've already been groomed, as Leesa and as Akeila was talking about, in this system, if I've already been oppressed and I've already have a lack, that I've been groomed to go after my basic needs, then an officer that's dangling maybe some body wash, maybe some cigarettes, or either if I come in because of the level of brokenness, because of the sexual abuse that already didn't happen to me, the molestation, the rape, the domestic violence. So you're gonna dangle what I need, and maybe I'm on substances. So now the correctional officer, the CO, or whatever this state worker is that is able to, like Leesa say, hone in on the fact that you are vulnerable prey, right? I can hold you to that and now dangle your basic needs over your head in order to get what I need to get out of you is sexual abuse, is sexual exploitation, is sexual misconduct, right? And so, and then sometimes, as Leesa will probably speak on, and maybe Akeila too, is that it becomes rape or it becomes assault when then now I don't want to do this any longer. I don't feel good about it. And so now I'm backed into a corner, or either now you know how to pull me out of my cell or pull me into a place of in the middle of the night where I got to duck it, or I got to some type of like pass to go somewhere, but it's you setting me up to place me in another vulnerable position in order to continue to sexually assaulting me. So I just want to kind of like, when you say paint that picture, I needed to paint the picture of the background of what even led individuals to incarceration. And then the continuum, as Leesa was talking about, of the power dynamics, the abuse dynamics that happens while yet I'm in. There's a lifetime spiral of abuse that is happening while yet from moving, as Leesa said and Akeila said, from system to system.
Wow. You know what? I'm so glad you painted that picture, because I don't think that people realize, especially that the violence and abuse begins in the womb. And then once somebody is already experiencing a form of violence at an early age, that violence continues and trickles and triples and doubles, and then you find yourself in an institution. And that institution could be juvenile hall, it could be a camp, it could be foster care. But one of the things that you said is really important, that I think people that are not in this work, in this field, don't realize that when people go to prison, they don't get your basic needs. You don't get body wash. You don't get shampoo that's specifically for Black hair. You don't get those things. So go ahead and Leesa, go ahead and talk to us more about what issues you want to discuss and why it's important people know this.
First and foremost, I just want to just throw out and just kind of debunk the idea that there is an ability for there to be consensual sex between a CO and a person who's incarcerated. Behind the authority of the badge, there is no such thing as consensual sex, because that is not because there's always going to be a level of coercion involved, where they have the upper hand over you in every way, because because you're always at a disadvantage in that situation, because they are always, because if the relationship ever gets found out, 9 times out of 10 the guilt is on you, and the investigation is always going to be in their favor, and you will get shipped out. And so but because we've seen it many a times, and even in the worst of cases that has come out recently of this certain correctional officer Rodriguez, who's been named in over 20 some odd cases of sexual assault that he's been indicted for and convicted in many of those cases. He was named early on in a while ago, and so they didn't even put him out of commission or they moved the girl who outed him. They moved her out into a different institution, kept him in the same institution working, and then come to find out, many other women stepped forward to say that they were being victimized at the same time while they were investigating that young lady's allegations.
That happens
People-
all the time. Yeah.
And so
We're constantly hearing about someone who has been identified as a predator, as an abuser, and then they move the person who is talking about them out, or maybe they move that person into a similar situation to further abuse more people.
right. And, you know, it would, but you know, what breaks my heart is that these stories are not happening to you know, to any, you know what I mean? These are happening to women that are stuck, that are stuck and don't have nowhere to run, that where their abusers have the keys to their cells, that have total control over their movements, over whether they over everything they get, over everything they eat, over everything they wear, over their ability to receive anything from their families, communication outside of the institution, whether they get visits, whether they get anything good or that they need. And that's the hard part, is because the retaliation can be slight or huge, but they'll never know where it's coming from or why it's coming to them. But it comes, you know, and and they can never call it, you know, and that's unfortunate because it's happening, you know. And now as advocates and as people on the front lines that are here now, we're calling it all on them for that, you know, because now they have stood and they have spoken and they have blown the whistle on all of them, on all of it, and they have been so brave. And so now they're not getting away with nothing. If they are, you know, if they are shutting off the electricity for anything, we're calling them retaliation on that. You know, I don't care what it is. If they are shutting down the yard for anything, we're saying it's retaliation, because that's just where we're at. Because they know they are at fault, and they know they have been hiding behind their badge and doing these disgusting acts for far too long. And now our sisters are being brave enough to step forward and actually coming and being doing interviews with reporters, and you know, sharing their stories of their strength and rebuilding their lives beyond incarceration and beyond abuse. And bravo to them.
So let me go ahead and call a thing a thing. You said it's happening, let's be clear, it's happening to Black people. It's happening to brown people. It's happening to indigenous people. It's not, and it's happening to poor people, but it's not typically happening to white people or people who have money. Is that what we're saying?
It
Well,
happens.
oh,
I was just going to say, Lisa, I know I'm going to let you speak, but I'm just going to say is that it's, mind you, we were incarcerated, so it happens to all people, all anybody that, and you got to understand, for us, watching more Caucasian or white women are a little bit more of an easier prey because of the timidness, because they're there behind different types of crime. Most of still some violent crime, but more so the culture of those that are Black, brown, indigenous. We kind of consist in a more violent culture, a more, like, you know, whatever. And I hate to say that it's a little bit more aggression around what it's like for us. Not saying that it does not keep us from experiencing high levels of abuse, but it's the fact that I've watched those individuals come in crying because they were cornered in in the child hall, working as a cook or working as a porter or something like that. And I've had to comfort over my time of some white women that I know. So
Yeah.
I get the fact, this, like, I want to, even though we know that it does happen, Candy, I want to also support your statement that it happens at a more higher rate to those that are women of color, right? But at the same time, we're talking about power dynamics, right? Is the fact that I am in a candy store and I have little to repercussion around how I treat somebody that society has already thrown away, right? So I just want to state that.
let's just be clear about what this type of victimization is clear about when it comes to color. And let's be clear about what society has always done. And let's take a couple steps back when it comes to sterilization. Sterilization victim is always who, when it comes to the numbers for sterilization, it was the Black and brown and indigenous to and cut the furthering of our race. That was what they want. They didn't want us to have babies. They felt, because that doctor that was doing it the most was saying you all just gonna get out and go and have babies. But in this situation specifically, this is what feminism looks like when we stand up for these issues. Because
Yes.
this was these men that were in there targeting women in there were targeting women based on stature, if they were petite, if they were quiet, if they could have power over them, if they weren't going to say anything, if they had a case that was sensitive. And they were doing that. And I'm going to just say, several of my friends that are now involved, they were Asian. They were Asian.
Mm.
And now, because I'm heavily involved in API, I'm Samoan, and my API folks, and I do a lot of work in API groups. And now I'm like, okay, let's start, going down that road of like, you all are in there targeting my sisters specifically because of their stature.
Yes. Right. So I want to continue this conversation, and I know Akeila, you wanted to say something, but I want to bring before I bring in one live question from Noreen, I want to make a comment that was sent to us, that it happens at male prisons too, and that men are victimized by butch female guards as well. So we want to talk about that in a little bit, but I needed to bring that question or that comment in. And Noreen, I know you had your hand up. Would you come ahead and join us, and feel free to ask that question?
Certainly. So I don't know if I need to, okay. Hi, you guys. Hi, Akeila. Hi, Leesa. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Doreen.
So, good to see you all. Of course, when I saw this topic, I had to get on. So one of the reasons I wanted to comment was, I've been teaching in the prisons for a long time. My very first experience teaching in the women's prison at CIW, I taught in the actual dormitory where inmates lived. In the CIWs, Emmons, taught in Emmons. But one of the things is when Leesa talked about the people become property of the state when they are incarcerated. The power dynamic is always in favor of the officers. So and also the inmate is property of the state. So there is no consent legally under no circumstances. There's never going to be consent. But when I was teaching in CIW, there was an unspoken rule, well, it was actually spoken, that if an inmate was being violated by custody staff or whatever, that nobody could tell. So in other words, if Lisa's friend was violated, she could not speak up on her behalf because of the fear of retaliation. So only the inmate, and we would do classes, one in particular, the conversation came up and there were nothing but tears. I'm talking about a room full of women, nothing but tears, because so many had been violated in that way. One of the other things I want to add to the conversation is I recently watched a movie, Ava DuVernay's Origin, and it talked about caste. Because when you talk, which is a better perspective than the actual race conversation, because these women, when the women described who was being targeted and victimized, it is based on a caste system. that these women are the people that they know in their minds nobody's going to care about. If in fact I am coming out of the foster care system, that means I don't have family who's checking for me. So that gives me a level of vulnerability. If I'm poor, which I'm likely to be, also as a former foster care person, more likely to be living under the poverty line and homeless, that means I have even less people caring about me. Those things stand out and make me a target because nobody cares about me. And it's a caste system. So yes, there are, I had young white women in my classes in CIW. And again, the victimization was consistent, but it's something you mentioned, Candy, is poverty. And poverty is a huge element in the caste system. It keeps those that are born poor, they want to keep them poor. And what do they do with those that are poor? You're good for your body. I can use you sexually. I can use you for labor. I can use you for whatever I want, and nobody cares, and you have to be subject to that. So there's so many things that go on, but most of it is in regard to your station in life. And this is what sets up these women and men for this abuse. And so I just wanted to say that, and get that into the conversation, that it's not just more caste than it is racial. Even though you will find, Candy, that yes, the numbers are going to be a lot more women of color, but that makes sense when you have a lot more women of color incarcerated, which we know that is based on caste in America. I just came back from Beyond the Bar conference in New York internationally, right? It is an issue, but it's caste. The treatment is the same. And I just had
Okay. Thank you, Noreen.
Absolutely.
That is powerful conversation. It is real. I just need to take a quick detour for a second. When I talk to parents, I tell them the same thing. If you don't show up for your babies while they're in school, in elementary school, then nobody is paying attention to them. They're not giving them the same care. And they will often be the same ones that are going to wind up in the prison industrial system. So Akeila, did you have a question or a comment, Kelly?
No. I'll comment later. I want Akeila to speak.
Okay, so Akeila, I have a question for you.
Okay.
What did it take for you to come forward?
Well, when I didn't want to do it no more, it became a little dangerous for me. So some things happened. I guess I knew too much. I stayed in it for so long that I knew a lot of information. So it became a dangerous situation. So if I didn't speak up, I don't know what would have happened to me.
So it was, so what I'm just saying from what I'm hearing is that, where is it that it was dangerous for people to say something, your danger was in your silence.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I do want to just connect to what Noreen was saying. Thank you, Noreen. Good to hear your voice. Good to see you always. Around when she was talking about men, right? Is that these things, even though I know there is a focus on female, but that men are also experiencing these level of sexual abuses. From what I've heard from, like I've been working in especially gang intervention, working with those that are formerly incarcerated, reentry. And so a lot of times when I'm working with some of these men, I hear about the stories, right, of the big homies. So let's talk about the big homies, right? So about how sexual, so I know we're having a focus on the power dynamics and the abuses that are coming directly from the state, but also that there is a dynamic around sexual abuse and assault around in inmates, because we do have sexual predators that are on the other side of the wall as well. You get what I'm saying? And so therefore, some of those sexual assaults and those abuses have been for retaliatory behaviors, disciplinary behaviors, in which sometimes law enforcement will set some of these scenes up or set these things up, especially within the male prisons, in order for other men to be sexually assaulted as a means of, as Leesa was saying, retaliation, as a means of power and control, and as well as as like I want to say this too is within like gang culture, right? It's a form of like a disciplinary thing around gang culture. And so some of the brothers and the sisters, or just more so I'm gonna speak on the brothers, but the brothers that have participated and was used to actually carry out some of these acts, parole too. So they don't stay in there forever. These are not just things that happen or either practice among those that are just lifers or just never coming home. Some of these incidents happen around individuals who do parole back into the community. And because now it becomes a practice, it is now practiced within the community. And so sexual assault, this assault might have happened and started, or their abuse or their exploitation or their rape, whatever, might have started in prison. But we know that sometimes victims become now perpetrators of harm. And so these harms are now carried out when they come home, right? So just like how we bring our trauma home from what we've seen, what we've experienced, these individuals are also bringing their trauma home, but now in a different way, right? As those who cause harm.
Wow, you guys have given us such insightful conversation that I know that most people who aren't in this field don't hear it. And some of us who are in this field don't hear that. So I really have to ask you another question, Akeila. What are some of the experiences that maybe some of your sisters experienced? Was it different from what your experience was?
Some of them was the same. You know, we all, can I talk about like the troubled teen industry just a little bit? Like I won't. So the troubled teen industry is basically like you have juvenile halls, you have camps, which is basically funded by the DOJ. And then you have the boarding schools, the therapeutic camps where their parents pay thousands of dollars for them to be there. So in both places, the same things is going on, whether you have money or you don't have money. So right now with this going on, Paris Hilton, everybody is fighting. We're like all fighting the same fight, right? So we sat down, and when you talk about, like, when you think about it, it's like, is it just children with this situation? Is it just children? Like anywhere children are, is there pedophiles? So
Yes.
a lot of people experience the same. It's about the same.
Yes, wherever children are, there are pedophiles. Wherever children are, whether they are in church, they're in school, they're in camps, they're in groups, they're in the industry, the media industry, in the streets, in the gangs, in clubs and organizations. There's a pedophile. There's a whole crew of pedophiles. We've known this, we've seen this. If we didn't learn anything else from church, we know with the Catholic church that pedophiles were heavy and deep. And so now we're hearing about it in the industry, and we're learning about it in prisons, and we're hearing about it in schools. Our children are not safe.
Mm-hmm.
And this conversation is critical because we need to let people know our children are not safe. You got to watch your children. It's not about letting your kids go. And we say, like, oh, well, back in the day, there were pedophiles. There just wasn't the internet to let you know how prevalent pedophiles were.
Right.
But pedophiles have always been roaming this earth, looking for an opportunity. And opportunities present themselves in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Leesa, talk to us a little bit more about what's some of the solutions. What can we do? What can we do to prevent this? And what are you doing? What are some of the organizations that you're working with, and how are they helping?
Yeah, thanks so much. Well, right now we're really doing the best that we can to provide the means in which those that are inside can safely report. because that's the problem, is that now that there's so many, what's called the grievance process or the 602 process, you know, it's an unsafe process. Right now, currently, the process is you fill out a form and you put it in a little box, but the person who grabs those grievance forms out there is a cop. And so, and also the place where the box is in full view of all the cops. So, and if anybody goes in to put that, you're at risk of being found out that you put something in there, and then in all the while, again, your grievance is going to get lost, or it'll get found out that you filed a grievance against one of their own, and there it is, you're being retaliated against, something's going to happen to you, you'll get all kinds of stuff will happen. So we, us and several organizations under the spearheaded leadership of Sister Warrior Coalition is helping. We filed a report, or created a report around trying to find ways of where our sisters, our folks inside, all of our people inside can safely report, offering ideas of how this can happen. And this is where a third party entity can receive those, so that our folks can mail those grievances outside the prison and safely report.
Lisa,
So-
wait a minute. I do
Go
have
ahead, Kelli.
this is for them to share the information. Sorry, Candy. So I remember it used to be an omnibus box, right? But I know that,
Mhm.
yeah, but I remember also the law enforcement messing with that and pouring stuff in there, and and pouring bleach in the box and stuff like that. But it used to be attached to, I believe, the third party entity was the ACLU. Is it still the ACLU that is helping to support this movement, or is it another third party that right now is confidential to allow for the survivors to get the help that they need?
At this point, there is no designated third party, and because of the simple fact that, because at this point, and that's the the other shoe had dropped on this, is that CDCR, the California Department of Corrections in Sacramento, out of Secretary McCumber's office, who is over all of CDCR, had agreed for the community-based organizations to form this organizers, this group of organizers to come in and support our people inside with these town hall meetings, to open up discussions of what are their needs, what do they need to feel safe, what do they need to safely report, how can we best support a culture shift, what so that they can feel better about their relationships with the COs inside, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And so we went in to do this, and then they based on what our communications were with the community inside, they were going to give us time to file this report that we would come and bring to the table, and then go over what our findings were, and then say yes to how they felt about it. At the end of the day, they didn't accept any of our findings. They went ahead and filed their own report completely.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I will forward all of this information of the findings of the report, in addition to CDCR's additional report. I'll forward all of this to you and your team, and also to you, Kelli, because it's great. It's comedy. It's just it's ridiculous comedy. And so basically what CDCR said is, go ahead and take your report and take it to legislation and try to get it passed in legislation, because we can't do anything with it, because it's too lofty of an idea for you to expect us to do these things.
To bring accountability and to bring safety to survivors, and to continue to protect those that are still yet in from further harm. Definitely
These were
understand.
simple things like, we want your body worn cameras on all the time. And if you refuse to have them all the time, we want you written up immediately.
Yeah.
Not the second time it happens and not the third time it happens. We want you written up the first time it happens. Because the COs were like saying, oh, when I go to the bathroom and turn it off, I forget. No, there's no forgetting. There's no forgetting because the assaults were happening when the cameras were off. And so, no, and that's what we were doing, zero tolerance for the COs for cameras being off. That's
Yeah.
what was part of our report. And so if they were doing zero tolerance for certain things for our people on the inside, then there has to be certain things that were zero tolerance for them, being that they were offenders in their camp
Right.
to address the rape culture coming from their
Yeah.
camp.
So Akeila, you started off telling us about a lawsuit, a very public lawsuit. What is this lawsuit covering, and what do people need to know about it, and how can they support?
Well, it's basically covering sexual assault inside the juvenile halls with minors. Well, we could just keep sharing tonight. Tonight on ABC Prime, we did a long exclusive interview about it. So it'll be a lot of information on what's going on in that. And basically we just keep our eyes open for the youth. Some little girl around that you might see that need a pair of shoes, if you can, get her a pair of shoes or hook her up with somebody who can do it. I think we just have to be that village, basically like Kelli and Noreen did me, be that village for that girl, who needs you.
That's so important. People don't know that there's some girls that are still being arrested for stealing Kotex out of a store. Like, I mean, I understand if we're talking bottles of perfume, but we're talking about sanitary supplies is just something that people need all the time. We're talking about, in your case, we're talking about shoes. We're talking about things that you didn't have a family or the village that can help you. I think it's important that we really have this conversation because we are in this state and place where everybody says, well, that's not my problem. That's not my issue. And we just recently had our annual prom dress giveaway. And I had it for a couple of reasons, because I know some young ladies that were going out on the street selling their bodies so that they could have a gown to go to prom, because their parents, if they had one, couldn't afford it or didn't have the means or didn't want to get it for them in the first place. And it builds their self-esteem, but also because we have abundance in this world. And some of us have more and we don't want to share it. I've heard people say stupid stuff like, well, I work for it. Like, but were you faced with the same situations where you were sexually abused, or you're living in a home where people don't want you, or you're forced to work at an early age? So it's important that we have these conversations to remember that there's 10-year-old girls who have a need. There's 13-year-old boys who need. There are 20 and 30 and 40 and 50-year-old men and women that also have needs. The people are human beings and we have to treat them as such. So, Kelli, talk to us about the reproductive justice and the movement that's in prisons to help women maintain a healthy body, to be able to birth healthy children, and also to make their own informed decision if they want children or not.
Right. So I want to, okay, so I'm gonna speak on that and I'm gonna expand it a little bit, because I'm gonna go back to when you said like about reproductive care and justice, right? And we know that there's been an attack on women, especially women of color, but on our reproductive organs. There's been this trauma, this historical trauma that has been targeted towards our reproductive care, our reproductive ability to autonomy to produce or whatever, just the family as in a whole. I do want to state too that there is a youth advocacy group. So even just talking about reproductive care, I'm keep going back to the power dynamics of when you were saying having basic monthly menstrual products. There's a youth group that is located throughout the state of California. They're statewide, but they have collectively come together to put a bill together in which I connected them to CCWP. And it's called What We All Deserve. And what they're trying to do is actually fight for juvenile facilities, all state facilities, prisons, whatever, for women to have access without having to go through the power dynamics of asking for menstrual products.
Is that the
right?
Young Women's Freedom Center?
Yes, and Young Women's Freedom Center as well. It's just like I said, it's a statewide coalition, that's happening. Is that, and I think CCWP is a part of that California Reproductive Statewide Coalition, is that there are different movements that are happening in order to get some of that, like to take back some of that, even though we know that we are incarcerated, right? We have incarcerated individuals, and we know what that means, that you are somewhat a ward of a state, but there still has to be some level of humanity and bodily autonomy that is happening. Because it's the stigma, like you say, that most people that are incarcerated are super violent offenders. And we know that, am I lying, Leesa, that 75% of the individuals that are incarcerated are really low-level offenses or either non-violent type crimes. Right? So these are not like heinous individuals that these things are happening to. And the crazy thing about it is that most of the time when these type of incidents or situations happen to individuals, they're not happening to long-term lifers.
Right.
Not at the rate. They have happened, especially historical CIW. There was a lot of misconduct with inmate and I don't want to call them relationships, but sexual engagement between inmates and especially the historical CIW. And also understanding that when it comes to reproductive attacks and misjustice, as well as rapes and sexual assault, as we're talking about it moving from institution to institution, I want to say that it moves from institution to institution. Not just the institution of prison, but the system, the societal institutions. So we start off with slavery, that these things, this reproductive attack on African-American, indigenous, BIPOC individuals, Black, brown community, that it starts within slavery, right? And we know that that is a means of the casualties of war, but it happens in slavery. Then it moved from there to mental health institutions. Because when slavery was then shut down, especially around women, then women was deemed unfit, insane, and different things like that. And they created mental health institutions. And those women was raped and sexually assaulted and sterilized at such high levels because they couldn't even really have that voice. And they've been taking all the power away to actually defend themselves. And then it moved from that mental health facilities to then prison institutions. So as one particular prison is shut down, you have another institution within America that is being built. So it goes from slavery to mental health, from mental health to prison, and now prison to ICE detention centers. So now we know that the rape culture, the rape, sexual assault, the reproductive justice, the sterilizations are happening now in these so-called immigrant detention centers now. Right. And so, like we say, it's moving from societal institutions, but yet it's still on so-called individuals that are criminals or have had some type of offense against the law. But we know that it is the lawmakers themselves and the law keepers are the ones who are also creating the most greatest and heinous crimes and offense against humanity.
Girl, you just said so very much. I am so sad. I am so hurt. I'm so depressed that we have not protected people, humanity. And when you start thinking about ICE, I know I used to just be so upset when I watched people, the powers that be, remove children from their families. And we all know it was all about that sexual assault. It was all about that and money. Leesa, I saw your screen lit up for a second. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Uh, oh man, I'm just shouting her down like we in church. That was like preach
Right,
because,
right.
it just speaks to, this, it's just like the patriarchy. It's just handed down. It's just this, um, this generational, handing down of this, of just continuous, virus, of that just continues to grow and grow, like a fungus. And, but then we talk about the solutions, and where does the healing come, and, you know, where I found my healing, because it sure didn't happen at the institutions. And I found my greatest healing from my own sexual assaults amongst the women, that were brave enough to mirror my own pain in those circles of trust, when they were brave enough to say, hey, this happened to me when I was this old, and this happened to me in my marriage, and this happened to me, I felt this way now that I don't have my kids with me. And so as a mom, of 6 kids, not having my children, this is what I'm going through now that I don't have contact with my children. And so I went through so much during my prison term. And so, and I had to like, you know, I had to ground myself, through so much pain and heartache, and then figure out a way to like be okay. And I only found that within the sisterhood, and so I got that healing from my sister that was able to mirror my pain back to me. And so, and then we were able to support each other through our time in that journey. And as much as possible through these like, beautiful exchanges of generosity throughout the years, beautiful exchanges of just the most smallest of things that people take for granted today in the free world. I can go into my bathroom today and pull out a Caress bar of soap and think not two things about it. But in prison, it's just the most beautiful gesture on a birthday to have that wrapped up in some and a page pulled out of of a beauty magazine on your birthday. And so I'm saying that these are the types of things that exchanges amongst broken women who the world has tossed aside. And we found each other through the pain and struggle of brokenness. All the while, my sisters were suffering in silence, and I did not know. And to come home and now hear that my sisters were going through all these within the closets of these institutions, and I was doing time with them while they were being victimized and being held down on their knees by their hair in these freaking closets. And I was just oblivious, because why? Because my stature was too tall, because I was too strong. That's the only reason. Because my mouth is too big, because I speak too loud, because I'm too Samoan, so I don't get victimized. But my little friend was too quiet.
Yeah,
Her case
yeah,
too sensitive, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So
Well,
so, so out here now, we keep each other strong, and
Come on.
there, and I'll hold my sister until she feels strong again, until she feels safe, and I'll hold her, and I'll hold her close. And I just have my little baby girl, my sister. She came with me. I went to the protest at CIW, and my brave little baby sister, that's uh I'm not gonna say who she is, but she came brave, didn't come out of the car, but she was across the street, and she just wanted to be near.
Yeah.
She wanted to support you.
She wanted to
That's
support herself
Yeah.
as a survivor.
As a survivor.
that's
'Cause
beautiful.
a pig did that to my little baby sister. So
Yeah.
I was able to hold her. And as she had to live through that, all that trauma and all that triggering came back to her. And you know what? I got her. I got her, because we're free now, and nobody can do that to her ever again. And
Thank you.
nobody's ever gonna make her feel like that ever again, because we got her. She'll never have to be made to feel like that.
Thank you. Well, listen, I love this conversation, and everyone is sending their love and support to you all. But I know Kelly has to get off this call in 3 minutes
you,
and
sister.
2 minutes. And I really want you all to stay, because I have one more question for you. But Kelly, what do you want to share with us before you leave?
First of all, I'm sending Leesa and Akeila both love. Totally understand what Leesa was saying about drawing from the individuals that we call sisters, moms, bros, that's behind the walls, right? And we fight, and we have a voice, and we're there. That love is unconditional. So like, even that love is unconditional. Um, it's so much that in the sound of her voice, and when she was talking about the rap bar soap with the magazine, she just took me, like, I'm here on business mode, I'm on beast mode, we trying to get this information out, but she brought me back. She just took me back. You get what I'm saying? And so, but this is what I want to say, is that we are all in a position, Akeila, Leesa, even yourself, Candy, we're in a position to make sure that another us do not happen, right? Or
Yeah.
we are in a position that when someone needs what we have to give, because we didn't walk through it, then we've been tested by the fire, right? So we don't scare easily. We not about to move. Our voices, we will not be silenced, and so therefore we're here. I do want to say that we are statewide, right? So there's resources all the way from Oakland to LA, in San Diego, and all in between. So like you said, if you are, I just want to say this, and I know you're going to make that public service announcement as well, but that if you're finding yourself, either you're watching by live because you got a phone while you're incarcerated, or you are watching and you've been formerly incarcerated, and then you know that these things are happening to you, then I do want you to connect with the Positive Results Center, and then let us know where you're from, where you're at, whatever, and what your needs are. And then she can see how we can connect to individual throughout we know that are doing the work, that are formerly incarcerated, have lived experience, and we out here passionately, genuinely, for real, dedicated in doing the work. But I'm finna go, and Akeila, but I do want them to know, like, how do they, like, because I want Akeila to talk about too, is that what is the title of the lawsuit? How do they Google it? How do they look it up, right? So those are the things that I think we need to know, but definitely connect with the Positive Results Center as well as CCWP. I'm Back to the Basics. I'm representing Back to the Basics, which is also out of Los Angeles, but I also work with the Department of Violence Prevention, which is in Oakland. And so we deal with gender-based violence issues as well, for those that are in the community, those that are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated. And so thank you so much, Candy, for having me to be a part of this community discussion. And I appreciate you, Leesa and Akeila, for your courage, for your bravery, and also continue to do God's work. All right.
And Kelly, Kelli, you know we love you. You are my sister, my niece, my friend, my community partner, the person that I most want to go to battle with. If I got to go to battle, I want you on my team. But before I leave, you got to know that Danielle wrote such an incredible, informative conversation and call to action. Thank you for your perspective and for all of you for doing the work. Kelli, we love you. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Can I just
Bye,
give a
Kelly.
quick call to action as well?
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
just a quick, if you all are interested at all in CCWP, please hit us up on our website at ccwp.org. And we are involved in an amazing campaign for women's prison closure. And because we are envisioning a future where women's prisons are obsolete and community, where community healing and communities and women and girls and decarceration is real. And so please join us in that campaign. We also have in our second year of legislation for SB 94 for our Drop LWOP campaign for cases that are older than 1990, I believe. And so we're in our second year. We need a lot of support for our Drop LWOP campaign for judicial review for cases that are that have life without the possibility of parole for cases older than 1990. So if any of you are interested, want to know more about a CCWP, the Drop LWOP campaign, or Women's Prison Closure Campaign, or just wanted to know more about CCWP as an organization and women's prisons support and advocacy, get a hold of me. Thank you.
So, Leesa, can we get your contact information and share it? And is there now is CCWP part of womensprisons.org or what?
Oh, CCWP is part you can get a hold of us on ccwp.org for sure. But I
And
will
what does CCWP stand for?
California Coalition for Women Prisoners. So I
Okay.
will put my email in the chat.
And as we send this, we are recording this video, and when we send it out, we'll send this information so that not only are the people who are watching this, but those that didn't get a chance to join us will get this information. And also, Akeila, if you would put in the comments about this lawsuit. And before you all go, I do want to get that information from you. So tell us what you want us to know. We just heard from you, Leesa. Akeila, let's hear from you. And then I have one final question for both of you.
Okay. Well, you could look the lawsuit up in the LA Times under Los Angeles Juvenile Probation Department sexual abuse lawsuit. And tonight at 7 on Hulu, it will be an ABC News Live Prime interview about it with Lindsay Davis. Well, I organize with Advocates for Peace and Urban Unity, which is basically the gang intervention, UPI, and all of those people. So that's where everything is.
So if you have any websites you want to drop in there in the chat, please do. We'll share it. And I have a question for both of you. So I know your life has changed as a survivor. So what do you do for yourself to protect yourself? And how do you nurture the little girl in you that grew up being abused or incarcerated or abused and incarcerated? So again, the question is, what do you do for yourself to protect yourself? And what do you do to nurture the little girl in you?
Well, right now, I'm still going through a healing process. You know, with the lawsuit, it brought up a lot of other things, basically, that I do deal with from day to day. Now I push myself every day to get out of my bed. I've been here, you know, I think I've sat in my bed for a while where I done left a dent in my bed in a certain spot. So every day I get up, I push myself, take my baby to school. I make sure I stop at a Starbucks, I make sure even if I just take a walk around the block just to get up, let some sun hit my face. You know, as a little girl, it was different things that I wanted to do, like hike and stuff like that. I would be like, oh, that's cool, that's different. So every now and then I'll try to do something that I wanted to do when I was younger, or I'll buy something, you know. I try to make sure now that my kids have everything they need. I think sometimes I go up and above, but it makes me feel better to know that they have everything that they need. So that helps me. But right now I'm still in a healing process. Hopefully
Mm,
I'll be healed soon and I can keep
You
going.
will. You will. You just keep on living, keep on getting the resources and the tools and getting the therapy that you need. And the healing is real. So we're praying for you. We are uplifting you. We are encouraging, motivating you, and we're here for you. Leesa, same
Yeah.
questions. How do
Yeah.
you protect yourself and how do you heal the little girl inside of you?
Yes. Oh, first of all, thank you, Akeila, for your answer. Uh, first of all, how do I protect myself? I protect myself by being vigilant about my personal safety today. And you know, I've learned a lot about how to be very selective about where, when, how I handle myself. You know, it's funny because now I have two daughters and I have a lot of nieces and you know I'm a lot more aware of what it means to be protective of oneself when in public and more self-aware in public. And so, you know, when my daughters go out and or my nieces, I always say, you know, there's just certain things you just got to be very aware of. You watch each other. You don't walk away from your drink and come back and you know, you just certain things you just got to be aware of, you know, you just
Yeah.
got to just be aware of it, you know, and also in the bigger picture, I feel safer now because I know how to bring community closer today.
Mm,
You know,
Nice.
I've built a really, really strong support system around me that just makes me feel safe, you know. And and so and what was the second part?
How do you heal the little girl inside of you? How do you take care of her?
Yeah, you know what? You know what? I am the goofiest person ever. And so I just I just cater to her. I cater to her. I'm a 52-year-old kid all at every chance I get. And I'm so I do not like I do not care. Everyone laughs. My sister is and my kids laugh at me because I will be the first one to play some video games and be on Roblox with my nieces and nephews online at 1 in the morning with them while their parents are like, "What are you doing up?" I'm like, "Leave them alone. They're online with me." So, you know, because I don't take myself too seriously, and I feel like that is like me just giving my younger self like the chance to just be a kid again. And I love Star Wars. I love amusement parks. I just love doing things that I love watching anime, you know, I'll watch a good Disney flick you know, and no one's gonna tell me different. I do what I want to do today.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So we could go on for a long time, but this has been a very full, insightful conversation. You ladies have blessed us with your truth. You have been so transparent and so generous in the information that you shared. I'm sure it has made a difference in how people will think about people who are being incarcerated, and also how can we support people when they come home. So I want to just share the last thing is some information that was shared. So it says, thank you, Kelli, Leesa, and Akeila for being so honest and informative. Our community needs to be aware and help and protect and support each other. There's more comments. including great information shared. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you all. Great work. Such an incredible info. Oh, I've read that one. Bless you all. This is from Michelle Moorbell. Bless you all. I'm so happy for you, Kelly, Leesa, and Akeila, and Candy. She added a heart in there. PRC is a blessing for many. Carolyn says, great work, ladies. I want to help volunteer and send information. We'll get our information to you all. We'll get information out to everyone. Jasmine says, thank you, Akeila and Leesa, for being vulnerable today and sharing your impactful work you both are doing. And great self-care. And Dr. Andrea says, what's the name of the interview tonight on Hulu?
Who's guarding the guards? It starts at 4
Who's
p.m.
guarding the guard?
That's good. Yeah.
Okay, great.
4 p.m.
That
Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay,
Um,
I'm gonna share that with everyone. Let's see, everyone in the meeting. Let's put that here and let us send that out. Who's guarding the guard? This was such an excellent conversation. Thank you all so very much for your honesty. Thank you all for watching on Facebook, on Instagram, on Zoom. We're going to send this information out. I am full, I am thankful, and I am full. That's the only thing I can say. I'm full. And I really want to thank you all for your honesty, for just being here today. I'm very sorry that we've had to have this conversation because what has happened to you all. But I'm thankful that you survived. I'm thankful that you have shared with us ways that we can support, and we will support. Thank you.
Thank you,
Ms. Akeila.
Thank you. Hi, Leesa. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We
Thank you,
appreciate you.
Candy. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.